Preseason is here, and with that, the 2025-2026 season is officially begun. I did say we'd be talking a bit about Dro Fernandez. I did that on social media, but we will get there. I'm going to have to make you wait. Because first, welcome to episode 705 of the Barcelona podcast, brought to you by the Blue Wire Podcast Network. I am Dan Hilton, and I said it a few weeks ago to Kevin Williams. I reiterated the next few days to Levon, aka Barcelev. I don't know a time when I've been this excited for the preseason to get underway. I was really excited for the squad they had, and we saw a grand total of, let me do my math right, 24 players, and all of them can contribute something to the first team this season. That is the kind of depth that we have not seen in years and years and years, and in 25 years of covering this club, I don't know the last time that Barcelona had this much depth at every position. The high level, of course, you don't have in prime form Messi, you don't have Xavi, you don't have Iniesta, but this team that has been constructed is still pretty good with the one-to-one and all those transfers and all the drama Lona in the background. The minute the ball is actually rolled out on the field, you can see it all melts away because Barcelona have a pretty gosh darn good team, and we are going to talk about all of it here in a second in these 5 headlines. Before that, though, please subscribe to the YouTube channel or the podcast apps. You can help me out on Patreon and find me on all social media. You know where to find me. All right, let's do it. Here are the 5 headlines from Barcelona's 3-1 preseason kickoff against Vissel Kobe in a match that wasn't going to happen, and I'm sure glad it did. Headline 1 is looks like preseason. There were, as I said, 24 players for Barcelona in this game. So just to keep everything organized in our head, here's the first half 11. It's Joan Garcia, Balde, Inigo Martinez, Cubarsi, Eric, Pedri, Gabi, Fermin, Rafinha, Ferran Torres, Lamine Yamal. I will say the hardest part of this match, well, I don't know. I'll let you be the judge of this. Was it harder figuring out the players that had changed their hair? Shout out to Z-Meister on the Big Up Watch Along. And thanks to everybody who joined me on that one. I will be having another one on Thursday morning for that game against FC Seoul. So please join me for that one. But yeah, was the hair harder because you get Gabi had a new hairstyle. Lewandowski had a new hairstyle. Fermin Lopez also had a new hairstyle, but in the opposite colored direction. Or was it the jerseys that was more difficult? The gradient of Barcelona's jersey with the red and the blue taking on Vissel Kobe in their burgundy. It was not fun to watch that. It was difficult to see. So I don't know if the hairstyles were more difficult or whether it was the jerseys. But yeah, there was something amiss about how everything was set up. Let's dive into the action here. 4 minutes in. The first shot of the game comes from Eric Garcia from a Lamine Yamal on the back heel. Rafinha with a cross into Ferran Torres. Just before that, in transition, 6 minute, Joan Garcia, welcome to Barcelona for him, forced into his first Barcelona save after a bad Cubarsi giveaway, which did wind up being a theme here. Vissel Kobe will also bring, it should be said, intensity on the press with a team in Vissel Kobe that, by the way, are 24 matches into their J1 league, which is the league in Japan, the first division. So they're 24 matches in. They look like they were match fit, and they started that game pressing well, with a lot of energy. I think Barcelona also have some really fair built-in excuses. Remember, this was a match that had been canceled and then was rescheduled. So Barcelona had to get on a plane a day after they were originally prepared to. It also looked miserable with that humidity. That's why they had 2 cooling breaks as well. The first one coming 22 minutes in. So between the late travel, the cooling break, you being in preseason, the other team being midway through their season, it is, I think, for that first half 11, it's hard to compare the two because that first half 11, they had to get out there and do their jobs. And yes, obviously, not like the fitness was any better for the second half team, but Vissel Kobe also made less changes because of the rotations they have in their season. So it was more of a tired Vissel Kobe side for the second half team to play against. I think that should also be noted. Not making excuses for the first half team, but yeah, looking match fit, wasn't necessarily part of the equation yet. Also coming off the travel. A lot of travel all the way to Japan from Spain. As I said, it was also hot and humid. So, yeah, a lot of excuses for Barcelona not to look their best. That's totally fine. 14th minute, Lamine Yamal across to Rafinha's header at the keeper. The ball won back by committee in that midfield. So it's not like Barcelona weren't fighting. It's not like they were giving it away in the midfield. It was Gabi, and it was Pedri, it was Fermin Lopez putting in a shift, just not having the reward on the goal scoring sheet. 17th minute, Cubarsi, another bad giveaway. Won the ball back himself. But again, I'm just reminding you of these things chronologically when we get to that headline a little later. Headline 2, pretty quick here. Eric on the set piece. The 1-0 for Barcelona comes in the 33rd minute. It's Eric Garcia from the corner. He seems to have a knack for these corner scoring goals. Yes, he did it against Inter Milan, but he can also do it against Vissel Kobe. Fermin takes it instead of Rafinha. It was interesting because Rafinha had been taking the set pieces. This is Fermin's first that he takes because it winds up being an in-swinger from that corner flag. So Eric gets the initial header. Gabi keeps it alive, and then Eric pokes it home. Celebrations for Eric Garcia, who, my question for him, I had him about, I guess, midway through my list of players I was excited about. The big question was going to be, would he play right back or would he be a depth option for center back? He is not needed in the midfield if they're going to keep all the midfielders they have. But the answer to that question is he going to be playing right back? The answer is overwhelmingly yes. Hansi Flick does not feel like Hector Fort, I think, has come along enough. He's one of the players that did not feature in this game. I don't know if that's a worrying sign for Hector Fort because he can play on both sides, but Hector Fort did not feature. Eric Garcia started this game, and then Koundé came in for his stead, but we know that Koundé is a starter and backed up by a pretty good right back backup in Eric Garcia. Glad to see that he's continuing this thing. I also mentioned on the watch along for Eric Garcia that at the ripe old age of 24, he is still improving. He's not going to be entering his second, or we'll say his first full season playing at right back. And a reminder that for a player that made his official Man City debut back in 2019, and still he's only 24 years old, guys can get better. And Eric Garcia has slowly been improving. He was a top prospect back then when he was 14, 15, 16 years old for a reason. There are reasons why Man City came for him. And it looked like, it took him a little while. And maybe he was expected to be a starting center back at Man City and Barcelona, but he is a Barcelona caliber player. You were seeing that here. It's not just about the goals. His overlapping with Lamine Yamal is getting better and better. Eric Garcia is 24 years old, still becoming a better player. And it's a reminder, don't give up on players just because they're 21, 22, 23 years old, and they're not the starter that we think they should be. Which is a good transition into headline 3, which is Cubarsi Looks 18. One player for Barcelona did not cover themselves in glory, and that was Cubarsi. I mentioned some of the early giveaways, but this game for me was a reminder that he is 18 years old. His ball playing, his line breaking, that is why he's a starter for Barcelona. That's why he plays. But his defending and even the mistakes he made with the ball at his feet today, maybe taking a bit too many chances against a team that was fully fit, to his teammates, again, trying to play his teammates that aren't fully fit yet or match fitness. So he does make some mistakes here. In the 41st minute, it's a Vissel Kobe shot. Joan Garcia leans down to scoop it up. Didn't have a lot to talk about with Joan Garcia, but he made the saves he needed to. The 43rd minute, nothing Joan Garcia, though, could do about this one. Cubarsi loses the ball in the midfield. Kobe come in transition. Joan Garcia gets the first save, so credit to him there, but nothing he could do about the rebound. I will say, Joan Garcia, loved the way he came off his line. To me, he just looks very comfortable already. The ball at his feet wasn't the best. He had one early giveaway, but Joan Garcia, with as good at ball playing as the back line for Barcelona is, remember in Hansi Flick's system, as opposed to Xavi's system or Quique Setien's system, even Valverde's system, the goalkeepers have less responsibility with the ball at their feet under Hansi Flick because the line of confrontation is a lot farther forward. So it is the onus of the center backs to break through those lines. So Joan Garcia, I'm not too worried about the ball at his feet. I'm worried about, can he command his box? And the answer to me in this one was an overwhelming yes. He gave up the goal, but there was nothing he could do about the goal. So I was really happy with Joan Garcia. And Cubarsi, yes, he made a mistake, but he's 18 years old. And as people know, I am very much on the record of saying I do not worry about Cubarsi. Defensively, he fell off at the end of last season, but I expect him to just be getting better. And you also live with, in the preseason, some lumps from Pau Cubarsi. Headline 4, Rashford is dynamic. Let's jump ahead to the second half now, where there's an all-new 11, which totally makes sense. You get a run out for everybody. And these are all first-team players with the exception of 2 in Jofre Torrents and Roony Bardghji. So for that second half, totally new 11. It was Tech in net, Jofre Torrents, Christensen, Araujo, Koundé at the back, De Jong, Castro, Olmo in the midfield, and then Rashford, Lewandowski, Roony Bardghji were your forwards. And that was pretty exciting too. Again, you got a mix of starters with some young players and academy players. The focus, I think, was all on Rashford and Jofre Torrents on the left side for me. And that's also where Barcelona had the ball quite frequently. The idea was to switch that ball over to Rashford or to Jofre Torrents and then let them get into space there on the left side. 56th minute, though, before that, a goal-saving tackle by Christensen. 59th minute, Rashford almost fed Lewandowski, getting in behind. 63rd minute, Castro delivers a long ball over the top to Olmo, who puts it wide. And I will say, this is, again, just 45 minutes from each of them, but Castro outplayed Gabi in that second half. I said there was a lot of reasons as to why that could have been as well, between match fitness and the heat and all those different things. The Vissel Kobe slowing down the second half. But Caicedo was just flat out good. And it's weird because when you're looking at the top level talent of the midfielders, and I talk about Pedri and De Jong and Gabi and Bernal, Caicedo is fifth on that list. And yet, functionally, you see why he's on the field. And I think, and I have to get better at this, functionally, all five of them, well, I think Pedri is the untouchable one. And then the other four, it is a open race. It is an open fight to see who's going to partner Pedri. And that's a lot of competition. Bernal will probably, again, come along very slowly because you have three guys who probably starting for FC Barcelona next to Pedri in that midfield. But I want to make sure that I'm not counting Caicedo out in that fight, that he might have just as good of a chance to start as De Jong and Gabi. Now, it's probably De Jong's position to lose, but for Caicedo, yeah, I don't want to count him out. He was good in this match. 69th minute, Koundé, a long diagonal to Jofre, plays well with Rashford, skirted to Roony, who skies it over. But it's a reminder that this is preseason and there are good things happening. And I love the fact that diagonal balls were getting off early to new teammates. And then headline 5 is teenagers with one-timers. Now here comes the fun here. The 77th minute, we get a teenage goal, the 2-1. Rashford and Olmo dropping deeper. Rashford then feeds Lewandowski. Good touch from Rashford here. His last action in the game also, by the way, was this pre-assist. He gave more space to Lewandowski by dropping in, and that sets Lewandowski up with a lot of time, who waits and waits and waits, and then squares it to Roony. Roony comes in for the one-timer. And if you're going to hit a ball that cleanly as a teenager, that ball's going to go in the back of the net. It's a really confident finish for a kid who, I want to remind you, has barely played football after that ACL injury for the last 18 months. We were getting some reports that Hansi Flick was really impressed with him. He was one of the teenagers that Hansi Flick liked what he was seeing from him, and that's why he started in that second half. He is the one of this group of youngsters who is in the dynamic between the two teams, so kind of in that limbo of first teamer and Barca Athletic, where he would go with Barca Athletic if it looks like he's still coming back and he doesn't really fit. But as a backup for Lamine Yamal on that right wing, that is a position that Barcelona needs. So was it going to be Roony Bardghji? Was it going to be Dro Fernandez? Well, in terms of first team minutes, Roony Bardghji already had at Copenhagen a little bit of an advantage, and he used that advantage to good effect today to keep Dro Fernandez on the bench and scoring that goal himself. Gerard Martin and Dro Fernandez then came on after the second goal. Dro played tucked into the middle with Gerard Martin holding that space out wide. And what was interesting about this is that's three different combinations of left winger, left back. So we started the game seeing Balde and Rafinha. We know how those two like to associate. Rafinha coming inside, running in the middle channels, and then Balde holding the width on the left. Then everything changed. Rashford wind up being much wider, and Jofre Torrents is that left back option that is much more comfortable stepping into the midfield and stepping in farther internally into the center of that pitch. And then we had the third option, which is Gerard Martin, who is much more defensive of that trio with Balde and Jofre Torrents. Gerard Martin does get forward, but again, he's much more defensive-minded and sets up a little bit deeper in that space with, again, kind of expecting the winger to either go much wider or to prepare to bring him in centrally. Dro Fernandez, though, wasn't really a left winger. He was a completely inverted forward coming in. That's where he does play in the academy as well. He started in his career, that being Dro Fernandez, way back in the midfield. I say way back, but yeah, more of an 8, even to a 10. And then as his career has progressed, which again, he's still 17 years old, he moved up to the left wing or even as a false 9. So he's continuing to move up the field. As you can see, the impact he can make in that final third as he matures as a player. And so Dro Fernandez was basically set up as a dual number 10 with Olmo, and it was Gerard Martin holding the width. So I thought it was very interesting. I think the most interesting thing for me in that game in totality was that we saw 6 different players playing as left wing and as left back, and we saw 3 different permutations. And I'm really curious to see how Hansi Flick will continue to pair them and match them up in these other 2 preseason games and then the Joan Gamper Trophy match, and seeing if Jofre Torrents does stay up there with the first team and what that means for Gerard Martin. So speaking of Dro Fernandez, he gets the 3-1 late in that game. Koundé whips it in, and Kobe couldn't clear it cleanly. So Dro finds it, fortuitous spot, one-times it on the rebound from outside the 18. Really good finish from a talented kid. I said about him a few weeks ago, talking to Arson, and Arson, well, he's kind of said it first, and I totally agree with him, having watched now Pedro Fernandez in his 2 years in La Masia. He showed up 2 years ago coming from Galicia, and what I've seen from him is his first touch is immaculate, one of the top maybe 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 kids in the academy with a first touch. He is so good in small spaces, a technical player, skillful. Does he have finishing product? The answer in the academy is we didn't really know, but the answer, at least in this one, is that there is something about finishing in his boots. He does have something there. That's why he's playing so far forward. And you can see if that's the kid that was impressing Hansi Flick in the preseason training, well, that's why he's getting some minutes early on. Will Dro Fernandez be in the first team? I'm not sure. Marcus Rashford did come as a backup left winger, and they obviously, Barcelona, have more depth now on the left wing with Rashford than they had last season. And Dro Fernandez, last season, 16-year-old, maybe a bit too young, was still playing with the U19s, but hey, guys improve. And Dro Fernandez might be improving very, very quickly. So good on him. Dro Fernandez properly and very fairly getting the headline. But again, Roony Bardghji also getting his Barcelona early season debut and first goal for him. Eric Garcia getting a goal, and Barcelona coming out pretty unscathed. 3-1 victors, where I don't have to worry about any of the negative. I'm all about the positive here in the preseason. And I'm also positive about how many subscribers have joined on YouTube in the last little month or so here. We are very close to 30,000. I'm so excited about that. We went from 25 to 30,000 almost in 2 weeks. And that is so exciting that people are as hyped as I am to start this season. So subscribe on YouTube, follow me, and help me out on Patreon, as well as on the podcast apps. So again, subscribe wherever you can find me, social media as well. And I will be with you on Big Up for that watch along on Thursday. And of course, I will be having content coming out, and I'm also doing more La Masia profiles. It is just a good time to be a Kool-Aid. You know that. So as always, until next time, Forza Barca.